guys, what is up? We are so excited to be here with you today. My name is Lacey Garza and this is Jennifer. We are internal astronauts and we are excited to talk about the Sacral Center by diving into manifesting generator type and generator type. I have to admit, straight from the beginning, I do not have a sacral center. So I am just here to kind of share what I have seen within my people, my family. But lucky for us, Jennifer does have a sacral center. And I'm wondering, do you want to just start this by talking about what it's like to respond as a pure generator? And if you want, you can even share like your channels or your centers.
Yeah, I think for me, I am a pure generator, as Lacey said. And for a long time, I was completely dissociated from my body. And so reconnecting to my sacral for that, gut response was definite work to get to a place that I could actually start to respond. And so I think that's, first and foremost, a process that all generators and manifesting generators have to come to. And if they find themselves that they too have been disconnected from that for long periods of being inside your own body. I think it does take some work, and having like people in your life asking you those yes and no, and instead of leaving these open-ended questions to you, to reconnect to that or if there's no response, that kind of I don't know, and so I think that part is really a wonderful way to get back in connection with what your voice truly is. And, we were kind of conditioned to believe that those kind of grunty sounds were not okay and they were not allowed. And so finding that voice again helps you really understand what that gut response is, and as it relates to your spleen, because that spleen is kind of, it's a lot quieter, but it's there. So, understanding the difference, because if you have spleen definition, sometimes if you're disconnected, you can misconstrue, I think, some things. At least that's the way it was for me. And then realizing that, or it could probably have been, being affected by someone else's emotional system. So those are all things that at the beginning, you have to be aware of when you're not fully in touch with that sacral response. I myself, I have the 515 channel of rhythm. So when I am in flow, I'm definitely in flow. And there's a variety of ways in which that shows up for me now that it never did in the past. And I find like in places where I'm trying to initiate something, sending out a ton of job resumes, or going in and trying to sell myself when it hasn't been asked for, or, approaching someone when I hear a conversation and like putting some feedback about what I do. Hi, I find that it kind of backfires and I feel an awful lot of frustration. But when I'm able to sit back and respond to things coming into my life, that flow kicks in and it's like everything is correct in timing. And then the second I start to try to do that initiating thing again, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot, because now I'm totally out of that flow. I'm totally forgetting what my true nature is, and that is to respond. And then I tend to have some people ask me some yes and no questions to get back connected, so I fully understand where that is coming from. So that's kind of my process, being a pure generator, and how it's kind of started to come full circle for me now that I stay more inside my body instead of out it. Does that make sense?
It's so cool because for me, a lot of the people I've helped come into their authority, I mean, it seems like maybe on average, the first 2 to 3 years is just looking for the inner authority, and as you spend time just feeling the inside of your body versus spending all of your time up here with these racing thoughts and words and concepts, it's like you begin to realize there are different things. Like there are different things like talking, communicating. There are feelings that mean certain things in my body, and it's up to me to discover like, oh, like this is a good feeling. This means that I want this. This is not a good feeling. This means that I don't. And just making peace that yes, like you can have a totally unique personal right and wrong outside of all rules, morality, systems, but finding that thing underneath our very loud mind can be so hard. Coming back into the body after being dissociated can be so hard. And so I love the way that you described all of that. And I think your recognition of like the timing moving so much flowier, you know, when you are in alignment with your authority and your strategy, I think the not self theme of frustration is so huge because it's like you guys will hit this plateau, and instead of recognizing that in itself could be right, you know, and right timing, and it could be valuable if you just let yourself be there for a bit, you know, but we don't recognize that. So a generator will get frustrated about the plateau, and they will put all of their energy and time into the plateau trying to make it move faster, but it's like it's not on your timing. If we're responding to life, life is the leader, and if plateau is there, life says plateau's there, you know. And just like surrendering to that response and just letting all of this be okay, whether it's plateauing or rising, you know, there is a right timing to it. And relaxing into that brings the satisfaction. It brings the ability to get deeper into your work and to get better and to learn the skills. And so what does all that feel like for you, that frustration versus satisfaction, and kind of the way that you see that?
Well, I think for so many generators, I mean, we're told that we can manifest, that we can make things happy or happen by the, how hard we work and all of those things. And so I think that is a huge portion of the conditioning that we're told that we can go out and initiate this stuff, and we find ourselves initiating a huge portion of our life. However, it just leads to a ton of frustration and not really understanding what is right for us. Because like when I'm asked to share or when I can respond to something, it's right on the money. But when I am asked to initiate something, a conversation with someone, whatever, in the end, I always experience frustration. And it happens at work, it happens in regular life, it happens with a lot of relationship stuff. So I find now letting people know, if you want something from me, I need to be able to respond to it. Instead of coming at me with something that I don't know how to respond, then I just kind of sit there because what am I going to respond to you? Because I want to stay in that truth, that knowing, because once I get out of that, it's hard to connect back in, and I let the mind can take control, and it takes me on this big journey of all the things that I am not. And I think that's really important for generators and manifesting generators to know, is that mind, once we're outside of our body, that's it. That mind is going to take you to places that you can't even possibly imagine, and you're not going to be all that happy. Like you're going to live a life that is very disruptive. And I've lived that, a lot. And as time keeps evolving, it's like I just sit back until there's something I can respond to, because that is what is helping me stay in the flow. Instead of going out and initiating a conversation, I'm waiting for that person to come so I can respond, because every single time that I don't, it blows up on me. And so it's just, over time, it keeps proving to me what that is for me, and following that gut and that sacral response is my truth. And if I want to live a very frustrating life, I can keep fighting against that, or I can sit back and I can wait, respond.
I love that. Well, and to me, I mean, that is so satisfying. And to not run around like a chicken with your head cut off, and to be, it's like so many generators get in this place where they feel like they are a slave. And when your sacral becomes conditioned, the big theme of that is not knowing when enough is enough, like fighting through your natural response to exhaustion, because it can just like turn off for you guys. And if you are being conditioned within your authority, if you don't know how to say yes and no, if you don't know what's correct for you, like it can so often lead to that feeling of just being overwhelmed by the amount of things you have to respond to, and not knowing like where you stop and where they start. And so I love your distinction between outside the body, inside the body, because inside the body it's just so clear about where things stop and start. And it's so clear, like it's all these feelings responding, and it's outside the words. I think so often when we get out of the body, the words are what we put all the meaning into. They carry us away into some expectation. And so I love this naturalness. And when it comes to manifesting generators, when we talk about this frustration on the generator side, the frustration I feel like is specifically from coming to these plateaus and not recognizing that they could be right. And when you come to the MG and you've all of a sudden got this motor connected to the throat somewhere, you've also got this sacral, I think things can get really blurry and confusing for the manifesting generators. Like the place that they end up going isn't necessarily being enslaved, it's feeling like they're overly busy. And it's like, okay, who's making me busy? Is it me, like from being like this initiator? Is it me responding to people and things in my life? Why am I boxing myself into this little overly busy, like stressed out, adrenally fatigued box? And the anger starts to come in. So this is a place for manifesting generators that I feel like maybe informing helps. And I'll explain a couple of situations I've seen this. Like, for example, my son who is 4 has 2034. And so watching him and my other son who's a pure generator is just awesome. And I'll see my little manifesting generator get up like he's going to go get himself like a snack or something. And as soon as he stands up, it's like my generator feels this like movement of energy, and he'll like jump on top of him or something. And then the manifesting generator gets mad and he's like, stop, because the generator is now stopping him from doing what he wants to do. So it's like the anger is so like control based, like other people stopping your creative process. Whereas like the frustration is so like not recognizing right timing based, and not just being able to be okay with that plateau that moves into that progress. So how do you feel about that, moving into like the anger to peace side that comes with the MGs?
I think honestly, it's not talked about enough. I think the problem that comes out of this is, we call them a subtype of a generator. Okay. That's what manifesting generators are. But really, I think we need to look at it from a couple of different aspects. Like they are a part manifester and they are a part generator. So ignoring that portion of the manifester that does have the not self stuff of anger, and ignoring that, I think MGs become conditioned believing that all their anger is incorrect, and like that they shouldn't be angry. And so they learn to suppress that. And really that's an indicator that someone is stopping their flow, And so if we continue to ignore the parts of them that are the manifester and not talk about the anger and frustration and just talk about frustration, they're over a third of society. And so we're missing a huge thing to be able to help manifesting generators understand why that anger does come into play and where that's coming from. And because of that portion of them that is an initiator, that they do need to inform. They do need to tell people what's going on so they can not shock people, not upset their systems. And so I think we've done a disservice slightly here by not talking about the fact that that initiating portion of them is real, and conditioning them to believe that they're only supposed to experience frustration and, they're a subtype of a generator. Yes. But it's like we're leaving off a little bit of information for them to find their correctness. And
I agree with that.
yeah, because, they're speedy, man, they're quick. And it is shocking to the system. And even as a generator, I like sit and watch manifesting generators. And I'm like, wow, you really are not me, for sure. There's such a quickness and like that I can't really put into words. And they're so powerful. That motor to throat connection, it's so powerful, so much more powerful, I feel like, than the generator in a lot of ways. And so if we can help them to understand when they witness the anger, what that connects to, and what a manifester is, and why it plays a part in who they are, as a type, I think that helps them find the correctness and find their sacral response. And then in those areas where they can initiate and they experience that anger when they're stopped, or, how they can work through those things to find their flow. I mean, if we don't talk about those things, how does the MG actually find their flow? That is confusing to me. I mean, I see people who live well as an MG and very much correct, but I think we're just kind of missing some of those things that could help some that aren't in contact with that anger portion of themselves to see that that's where they are stopped, and how can, through informing others around us and others in our aura, by just informing them, we can avoid that. And then we can go, they can go out and initiate and do those things that they're able to do, instead of shutting that off and thinking they're bad. Or, I think we're conditioning them in a sense to be out of touch with that anger, which is a portion of them.
I love that, because, watching both of my kids, and one being generator, one being MG, there is such a wild difference. And don't get us wrong, because even within generators alone, if you're an emotional generator, it's going to be totally different than a sacral generator. And so there's so much like uniqueness and variety in every single type, but to not make a distinction between MGs and generators, I think that does do a massive disservice. And it's interesting because even in terms of that response, it can be very different. Like, I'm much more likely to see my MG, maybe look at an empty cup and then just pick it up and then just start walking to the kitchen. Whereas my generator, he will just go all day long without drinking anything until I just walk up and I'm like, hey, do you need a drink? And then he's like, oh yeah, mom, that's great. And so trying to give him that like stimulation to respond to, whereas the MG recognizes it and responds to it through action. And there's not really much verbal stuff going on between him and another person. And that is so much of what initiation is. And so tunneling down a little deeper into that idea of initiation, I'm an ego manifester with only invitation channels. And initiation is a very interesting subject for me. Manifestors do not really have a strategy. Informing is as good as it gets. And at the same time, I do not believe that anyone initiates anything. As a manifester, I'm taking in the transits. I am seeing what that means inside of myself. I am informing others, but that didn't come from nowhere. Like, I am connected to this program that moves us into the future as a collective so that I can inform about what is going to move us into the future as a collective. And that was not me coming up with that idea. So initiation, even, it's not someone coming up with something and doing it. It's still life being the leader, and it's still responding to something, whether it's a real thing, an energetic thing, an inside thing, outside thing. And so I like to narrow down in that place of initiation between MG and generator. and look at that verbalness. Like, look at like what it looks like when the generator responds and how it seems like I'm usually a part of that equation versus the MG and him doing that in his aloneness, and just not needing that stimulation to get to that idea himself. Like, what's all that feel like for you?
I love that distinction because I think that's really important to talk about. And like the way you explained initiating is what it is in my mind. And so I'm glad you went there because sometimes I forget that that's not the way that that's typically used. So I think it is important to realize that we're all kind of, it's not, you're not creating it out of nowhere, so that is a different way than the word exactly means. And this is like we could go off on a whole tangent about just that alone. And so understanding that difference and what that looks like. And I mean, I think it is true. Like, I know as a generator, I need somebody else to sometimes it's like almost giving you the idea in a sense, but it's like guiding you. Oh, I really should drink something. I can totally see that. And looking back as a child, I can definitely see times in which I sat back kind of waiting for somebody to say something to like help me to get that response, to acknowledge the things that were inside. And I think the way you do things, I think it's become so natural, right? Like you are inside your body, and that's why that type of initiation thing, it's so in flow for you because you are inside your body and you're totally feeling the way it moves. And it's not this creating something from nothing. It is a response for the manifester. They just know what to do and they just do it. And so that's why giving the information about what you're doing is so important. In my family of origin, I have a niece and a nephew that are manifestors. And my niece lives very comfortably as a manifester, informing everything she does at every stage. And she meets very little resistance in her life because she is constantly informing. And so you can see how well it works when that strategy is put to use, right? And so within a manifesting generator, if they're not doing that kind of initiation or that responding to what's inside of them and that anger is coming out, it's important for them to know that that's where it's coming from. That, hey, my brother hopped on top of me and I need to go get a drink. And that's what I was going to do. And being able to allow that and go get the drink instead of that being the end result. Yeah. So now I got sidetracked. I think, did I cover everything?
I really like the place that you started going there, because I think part of what makes manifestors so kind of scary is that like they can do anything, so it's like, yes, I love how you framed informing as the answer for this anger, because he could easily just punch his brother in the face. He could take that manifesting power and he could do something. Or you could understand the way that this works and you can fit into that flow and have the least amount of resistance and just be like, hey, get off me. I'm trying to get something to drink. You can just inform. And the power of those words can stop that violence. It can be the right thing that generator needs, instead of you causing a trail of devastation and hurting this and skipping the steps. Like, all of this is so relevant. Just going slow, letting people know what we're doing. And that trail of devastation is something that I think can be so hard for an MG to watch them do to themselves. Like, they're hopping.
It's hard as a parent. Don't you feel like that? As a parent, sitting back and watching your child, like, even if it is a manifestor, but let's move back to manifesting generators. Like, watching them experience that and without being able to stop them and saying, hey, guess where that's coming from? Just inform them what you want to do, and that anger is going to go away. You know, and it, for me, like, I always describe it as this shock, you know, kind of like when you just go do something, I'm like, wait a second, what am I supposed to be responding? It like, it brings up like this level of almost agitation within me. Like, what am I missing? What did I not respond to? And so I think that's important too. It's when I say shocking, that's what I mean by that. As a generator, even watching a manifesting generator do that, it's like, what am I missing? Where are you going? You know, and it's like almost like a panic, or like, you know, what am I missing out on? How am I not living? You know? And so I think that's important to understand too, is like, and like you said, like as a parent watching that, and I apologize that I interrupted you, watching that and them fighting instead of just saying, I forgot to let you know I was just going to go to the kitchen and grab a drink. I'll be right back. Do you want to come with? Then giving the chance for the generator child to respond right to them, you know? So it's, if we were parented correctly, and if we can parent those children correctly, then they can be in their correctness prior to experiencing it as an adult, and just understanding that they do have to inform their entire life.
Yes. Well, and I really, I think that when you start boiling into that trail of devastation with adult manifesting generators, and they're starting to see that, like, that can be such a painful thing that they create for themselves over and over and over again. And it really is all about getting lost in the energy, and skipping steps, going too fast, not being patient, not honoring those plateaus. Like, when plateau comes, don't start new business. You know, like when plateau comes, like honor that timing, and see what's there for you within it, and play with that, instead of start new thing that plateaus, and then new thing that plateaus, and now you have 7 things, and now you have lots of people, and none of them are really working correctly because we skipped steps to make the thing. And so finding yourself in one of those places is so overwhelming and challenging. And even to just go back and fix the trail of devastation, or to close and shut down the trail of devastation, it's like, that can be a hard thing. And if you know that, you know, you can be patient, and that the things that are correct for you, like, they will wait on you. This is so huge for emotionally defined MGs and generators. Like, let yourself get that clarity of either your response or your wave, and then let it move you. You know, it doesn't have to be this thing that's moving us and saying, oh, that failed, start something new. It's like, no, like, get in that body and respond to what is happening. So we don't just look at this thing that's happened and be like, oh, failure, shutting that out of system, completely doing something else. It's like, let's respond to that failure. Maybe there's something in that plateau, or maybe there's something in that crash business, or a relationship, or some opportunity, you know, like, get in there, don't avoid that, and let that open up new beginnings for you, instead of shutting it down, that's not worthy, and then just hopping into that next thing.
But I think that's the place too, where they need to understand, like, generators must love what they're doing. So do manifesting generators. You have to have love for the work that you are doing. And I think that gets kind of skipped over a lot too in generators. And that's why they end up being overworked and overburdened and all of these things. And it shows up a lot more in manifesting generators, like kind of louder, I would say, is because it's like, I don't know, that thinking they failed, but they're at a plateau. And so then they do start something new, but then they realize they should have never abandoned the first thing they were doing, you know? And it's because that's what they truly love, and recognizing the plateau as just a plateau instead of a failure, because it is something they love and they want to pursue and find that gratitude and all those things in that work. And that's where the focus needs to be, instead of that being busy just to be busy thing. Like, how can MGs sit back and just trust their happiness in those regards when they do come to those plateaus, instead of abandoning it just to be busy for something else? Because then, we're looking at a lot more anger and frustration appearing for them in that regard. So reminding yourself what you're passionate about, what your vision is. And like for manifesting generators, taking the additional step and saying, am I just being busy to be busy, or am I being busy for the right reasons? Kind of questions. Like, should I just slow down here, wait this out, wait for the other steps to come instead of jumping over it? Recognizing it for what it is. This is my vision. This is what I'm passionate about, and letting it unfold in that way instead of being busy for just busy.
Yes. I love that too. And I think so much of the time, all of the right reasons and things, they will come because you will learn them from responding to life through your gut. So like maybe when I started my experiment, I had no idea what was right or wrong for me. Maybe I had no idea what I liked or what worked well. And by following my authority, I found ideas about those things. Like I see what an invitation, I see what informing, I'm gaining ideas about what works for me. And so like that sacral can be that thing that helps you learn, oh, this is work that I like. And now that I know that, I can kind of make this structure of, this is what I like to do, this is where I'm at, and let your sacral teach you those things. Because maybe when we start, we do think that we like this, that, and the other, and then we come to find that was just like us wanting not self energy, and then we come up with new ideas about what actually works for me. And so even that in and of itself can be such a deep process. And when you are in those trails of devastation, if you can get into that gut, it's like the mind is so much of what leads us to doing that and to skipping the steps and to coming out of our timing. So if you can just get down in that gut, which is, easier said than done, it can start to respond with no's and be like, nope, this isn't it. Like you got lost in this spiral of adventure. Or like it can start saying yes to something that you may not even have in your playing field. And so by being in that gut, it can kind of lead you out of maybe these big resistance and hard situations, just by being present with it. And that's how you're coming up with, oh, my body does like this, I don't like this. So how's that feel for you, Jennifer?
Well, I think, that was a big realization for me, right? When all this started to I really started to understand it. Realizing being in a job that I don't actually like, what do you do when you're in that place? Well, you find the portions of it that do fill your cup, and then just be in gratitude and look for the things that you can take away from the portions that you aren't, so excited about or don't love so much. And be in gratitude while you are moving to something that is your passion. Because then once you find that, and once you stay aligned with what you love, you will work until you fall over, you sleep, you get up, and you do it again, and it doesn't feel horrible to you. And so that's a portion for me, like right now, is really understanding that the work I do with human design and working with people, that's what's filling my cup. And so playing that balance right now until I find a place in my 40-hour regular job that will allow me to do something that I love in my 40-hour job, right? And so I think that that's where I think we see a lot of frustration in society from manifesting generators and generators, is because they don't see those potentials and those things that are affecting their daily life, like doing a job for them that they're not passionate about or doesn't align with their truth, does cause the frustration. And so once that comes into full awareness and then you understand why you're feeling frustrated, then taking the things that you can from that job, being grateful for, what it's giving you while you're searching for your passion to be able to transition to that 40-hour job that fills your cup.
I love that. Yes, because you don't have to come up with what's next for you. Like your sacral will lead you out step by step, day by day, week by week. And when I initiate someone into the experiment, like that's where I want them to be. I want them to understand that like you aren't the one. Like you aren't the one that has to do any of this. Like you don't have to worry about any of this. If you can just be brave enough to be inside your body, your authority will lead you all the way out, and you're not in charge of the timing or where you go or what that looks like or necessarily what happens along the way, what types of relationships you form. This is a true surrender. And to me, as that thing leads you out, you can learn who you are underneath all of that conditioning. Like it's so beautiful. And it's so beautiful to come out of work that you thought you loved. And as you're experimenting, you're watching your body chemistry change around the work. You're watching like all of a sudden now you're feeling stress and all of a sudden you don't want to look at it and you don't want to do it. And you realize like, I didn't love this. I was just conditioned to. And it's like, it can be so trippy along the way as you start to let go of these things that we thought and come into what really is. It's like, don't worry about any of that because that sacral will literally, it'll do the thing. And so, Jennifer, what do you think? Is there anywhere else you want to go in the world of the sacral?
No, I just think, it's really important for those with a sacral, authority and that sacral gut response that you're really working towards just getting inside your body, allowing the mind to run its stories, but you're listening to the gut. You're fully inside your body and waiting for that response that is going to lead you out. And so I think that's just really important. If you have the sacral, if that's your authority to really tap into your body and play with that and allow those guttural responses to really be there and allow those to guide you in life, there's nothing that you can't do. And I think that, when you discover that, oh, hey, this is the reason why I haven't been so happy, it's not easy to fully surrender to that and know that now that life is going to show up for you and you will have something to respond to that's going to lead you out. So just waiting on that timing and waiting for that life to give you something to respond to, it'll be beautiful. And just, get inside that body and practice that. Yes or no questions. You want to go to Starbucks or do you want to go to Caribou? There we go. So something as simple as that on the daily can help you get inside your body as a sacral authority.
God, let me go just from what you just said. It gave me cold chills all over my body because that is something that I think we do not understand. Like, you are life. Like, you are a piece of life. Like, you fit into life, okay? And as you surrender and let life bringing to you what is made for you, or chicken before the egg, what you were made for, like this is like real, true, like your freaking soulmate, like brought to you by life. And you're like, oh my God, like, what did I do? Da-da-da-da. You didn't do anything. You just waited on the thing. You just let life be the leader. You let life teach you who you are instead of all of these homogenized minds that try to make the internal world into one thing inside of all of us. Like, you cannot imagine who you could possibly be. You cannot imagine the beauty that can come to you and the people that can come to you and the ways that your life can change. And so I just had to like stop there for a second because it is so true. And I know that that is not something that can be understood until you're watching it happen in your process.
I I'm going to be honest and say until it starts to happen for you, you can't believe it. Because it's so outside of the way that we are raised and so outside of societal norms and standards that it isn't something you can fully understand. But when you are inside your body and you are tapped in, life shows up and it just keeps showing up. And once you're in that flow and you fully understand what that looks like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. And life just keeps handing you everything that you need. And there is nothing that you have to do except respond to it. There's nothing more beautiful than that.
So I think with that, like, I think this has been a great video.
I think we're good.
All right. You guys have a great day. Be on the lookout. You should be able to find a reflector video. And then we're also going to do projectors and manifestors. So we'll talk to you guys soon.
Have a great day.